Let's talk with Tom Murphy about a variety of things this morning. Tom, I want to start with Taurean Carter, the story that you broke about his surgery that you got sources telling you on Friday. And I thought Tommy made a good point, and as someone that's gone through an ACL injury, the surgery was pretty expedited once I found out what exactly it was. And I know that you referenced on Thursday, you don't know what it is. Do you have any indication if this is a long-term or short-term injury and what it could impact the defensive line?
Good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on again. That's the thing. I'm hearing different things, and I hate to report vaguely like that, but, Sam Pittman said on the day it happened, I believe his quote was, "We don't think it's an ACL or anything of that nature." But there's only a few options it could be, and if you wait 3 weeks after a surgery, sometimes you're letting the swelling go down to see what's going on, or could it be a cleanup? That's going to take some further investigation because everyone's just gone quiet about it, and it's just been a weird deal.
Yeah,
go ahead, Tom.
I was just saying my point, or I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Generally, with athletes, now I had a friend of mine tore his ACL. He had to wait 6 weeks to get into the surgery because the surgeon couldn't get him a slot on the table until then. But athletes at the University of Arkansas or any other university, if you have an ACL tear confirmed by MRI, generally that's going to happen within hours or days, not weeks or months. So, I mean, that would lead me to believe that potentially it's not as severe as you thought it was, or maybe something happened and re-injured. But generally, if it's a major ACL or tendon problem, Tom, those surgeries happen fairly quick.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what's got me a little bit befuddled on this one. And we can hope for the best because he was having, if you were to say, name 2 or 3 players who had a really big spring, he's one of those. I watched him on a few plays, and he's got really fast hands, and he's just explosive off the ball. And I think Sam Pittman made the point about 3 weeks in that one thing that got him at the snap of the ball, there was just so much explosion off the defensive line. And we saw the O-line struggling to handle certain blitzes, and Barry Odom said they were running a bunch of stuff at him, not necessarily what they'd have in games all the time, but they wanted to get it on film and find out who are the best rushers. And Taurean Carter was just having a massive – when they went to a 4-man front, he was starting with Isaiah Nichols, and he was having a really good spring. So let's hope for the best and that he can play. If he's not available, then they're in a position of big-time need, and that's why they went in. And they were going to get a couple guys anyway, but Terry Hampton's one, and you might want even another one. So we'll see further as time warrants.
This was a article written by, I think his name's Mike Fisher for Fansided, speaking of something that John Ridgeway was talking about, the newest Dallas Cowboy draftee. And here's a quote from Ridgeway. Tom, he said, "I'm going to try and break someone's neck when I get out there talking about his mentality on the defensive line." Just kind of what are you thinking is going to happen with him, Burks, Brown, and some of the other guys that signed free agent deals? What does that timeline look like for them in mini camp and training camp the next couple weeks?
Well, just to make a good impression on the coaches, and of course, I'm not fond of guys saying he wants to break someone's neck, but I mean, it does speak to his mentality of just wanting to be a big physical guy, a mauler, which is, the reputation as a former wrestler that he has. So I suspect John Ridgeway will make a roster. And Traylon Burks, I mean, you're well beyond that. Can he become a first-year big-time contributor? And I saw the over-under numbers. I get some emails from Vegas now, and the over-under numbers on him compared to the other wide receivers in this class were similar to Drake London, I think around 850 receiving yards. And I think at 5 touchdowns, he might have had the highest over-under numbers on both of those of all the rookie receivers. So he's walking into a situation where the playing time should be there. Monteric Brown and Cunningham, Clary, all these guys, just hoping they can get on a roster. And I don't know when, final cuts will be a lot closer to, once they get in camps in the late summer.
Yeah. Tom Murphy, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, with us here on the Morning Rush. Tom, Arkansas entered the weekend 2 games ahead of all the other teams in the West. They leave Auburn after taking 2 of 3, 2 games ahead of everyone else in the West. The order's a little bit different, but I would call all in all a successful weekend on the Plains.
I would say much, yeah. And Dave talked yesterday about the fact they had a chance to win all 3 games, which is true. But, man, their clutch hitting just – I mean, they had a double and 2 singles in the middle game, and, you know, they still had a chance. So that means decent pitching by Hagen Smith and the relievers behind them. I mean, they even had a lead, and you know, Vermillion gave up a solo home run. That porch in right field at Auburn, y'all, that's a short porch, and a couple of those would not have been out at Baum Stadium. But anyway, Auburn was a good team going in. I know it would have been disappointing if they'd lost the series because they didn't have their Friday starter Mullins. They didn't have their closer Burkhalter. And if you lose in that situation, then you're disappointed. So Webb's home run was a huge deal in the 3rd inning. They gave them a 5-2 lead, and they managed to hold on after that. But, man, they had a ton of hits yesterday, and they left runners on 2nd and 3rd in a bunch of innings. I mean, that could have been more like an 11-4 kind of a game. And they overcame having 3 errors yesterday, which is very uncharacteristic of them. But I think they're feeling a lot better. I talked to you guys on Thursday about how on the weekend you need to have 4 or 5 guys that are pretty hot. Well, I don't know if they got up to 5, but I think between Webb having a decent weekend, I think Turner had 5 hits. I think Moore had 5 or more hits, and Caden Wallace had a good weekend from the leadoff spot with several doubles, a bunch of runs scored. So maybe, you know, they're pointed in. And Dave's got a tough decision on a game-to-game basis now because Borfin's back and hitting well, and Kendall Diggs has done well. You know, between Lanzilli, Borfin, Zach Gregory, who sits among that trio, and it was Lanzilli in 2 of these games. But, you know, upward trend, if they can win the series against Vanderbilt, they'll put themselves in great position to defend their title.
Another player that emerged over the weekend is Will McIntyre, who pitched earlier in the week in the non-con game against Missouri State, just a few innings. He has now emerged as someone, Tom, I think that Dave can rely on out of the bullpen.
I'll tell you what, if you can add one more arm that you can get 2, 3, 4 innings out of on a weekend, that is massive, and that's what Will McIntyre did yesterday, including, I think he shut down 7 or 8 batters in a row. He got out. And in a game like that, man, and you're just trying to hang on and get to the 9th inning and get your closer in or whatever, and they even went to McIntyre in the 9th. It was just really big. And I've always wondered, he pitched the last in the COVID year of the Grand Canyon Series. It was a 2-game set. He pitched one of those 2 games. I think it was the first one. And he had a really good outing. And I would ask around, you know, I guess it's just that his numbers aren't overpowering, you know, his velocity and all that maybe aren't, you know, elite, but he gets people out. And so I believe, yeah, you add him to the pen, he could be a difference maker for them going down the stretch.
Tom, last thing for me, Kkk Robinson announced over the weekend that he is headed to Texas A&M. What did you make of his decision? The second player in the last 2 years, Ethan last year, and now KK this year, headed to play for Buzz Williams.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was inevitable. All the guys who cover basketball on the daily were talking about that seemed like with all the incoming talent that KK might have seen himself on the odd man out kind of situation. And I hear Buzz. I think he's an intriguing guy. I listened to his entire post game. He had a 10-minute post game, which is unreal. The game up here in which the lights went out with a couple seconds left in the game. And, of course, he made reference to that. But he's an interesting guy, and I don't know what his fit or his playing time will look like. You know, Ethan Henderson's minutes down at A&M didn't look drastically different, I don't think, than what he might have gotten had he been here this year. So I hope he finds playing time and some success because he seems like he's a pretty good kid.
Tom, great stuff to wrap up the weekend. We'll chat again on Thursday and get ready for the Arkansas and Vanderbilt series.
Sounds great, y'all. See you then.
All right, Tom Murphy with the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette with us here on the
Partners
Morning
at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. And don't forget that the MLB is back as well. Who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.